We only know one sentence worth of information about him. And yet, somebody stopped, paused on that name, and thought, Enoch. If he was taken up into heaven, what might he have seen?
Researchers ran the 2,000-year-old Book of Enoch through advanced AI analysis, and the findings are unsettling. The AI uncovered an alleged astronomical code pointing to a real catastrophe in 10,800 BCE and a future event yet to occur. In this video, we break down the AI's analysis and its implications, revealing insights that could change how you view one of history's most controversial books. Stay until the end for the full revelation. The AI, called Enoch, researchers at the University of Groningen introduced a development that many scholars described as a turning point in the way ancient manuscripts could be dated, and that development carried the name Enoch, inspired by Enoch, a figure remembered in Jewish tradition for wisdom and deep knowledge. According to statements shared by the research team, this new machine learning model aimed to solve a long-standing problem that had challenged historians for decades. How could experts confidently assign exact years to fragile scrolls written thousands of years ago? How could handwriting styles be measured in a way that removed personal guesswork? The answer, researchers explained, came from combining scientific dating with artificial intelligence in a structured and measurable way. The Enoch model was described as a date prediction tool that merged radiocarbon dating with detailed handwriting analysis. To build a reliable base, researchers carried out carbon-14 testing on 24 manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered across 4 sites in the Judean desert. These scrolls formed the backbone of the system. High-resolution images were captured for each manuscript, and specific letter features were carefully identified. Researchers explained that every curve, stroke thickness, spacing pattern, and angle carried historical meaning. The AI system was trained to recognize these shapes not as random marks, but as measurable geometric data. By linking carbon-14 results with handwriting features, the model built a structured timeline showing how writing styles changed over centuries. Many scholars began asking whether this marked the beginning of a new era in manuscript studies. The technical side of Enoch relied on Bayesian ridge regression, applied to handwriting style descriptors. Researchers explained that this mathematical method allowed the system to detect subtle patterns in ink traces, including microscopic curves and stroke variations often invisible to even trained paleographers. 62 digital ink trace images from the radiocarbon-dated scrolls were used during training. Afterward, validation took place with 13 new samples to test accuracy. Results surprised many experts. When applied to 135 undated scrolls, approximately 79% of the predicted dates were described by paleographic specialists as realistic. In blind testing situations where chronological information was deliberately hidden, the AI correctly estimated manuscript ages 85% of the time. Mean absolute errors ranged between roughly 28 and 31 years. That margin often proved narrower than traditional carbon-14 testing on its own. A natural question followed. Could a machine truly understand ancient handwriting better than decades of human expertise? Researchers responded that the goal was not to replace scholars, but to support scholarship with measurable data. For many years, paleography served as the dominant method for dating ancient texts. Specialists compared handwriting styles and letter forms across known periods to estimate approximate dates. However, this method carried a major weakness. A large chronological gap existed between dated manuscripts from the 5th and 4th centuries BCE and texts from the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Few comparable Hebrew or Aramaic documents survived from those missing centuries, which made visual comparison difficult. Scholars admitted that paleographic dating often relied on tacit knowledge developed over long careers rather than on quantifiable measurements. Subjectivity entered the process. Different experts sometimes disagreed. Furthermore, an unexpected complication emerged from restoration practices in the 1950s, when castor oil was applied to scroll surfaces to enhance legibility. That treatment later interfered with radiocarbon accuracy. With compromised material and incomplete comparison samples, uncertainty persisted for decades. Researchers at the University of Groningen explained that these combined limitations demanded a new solution grounded in both science and computational precision. Enoch represented that solution by bridging the chronological gap with empirical data. By blending measurable carbon dating results with geometric handwriting descriptors, the system created an objective structure that scholars could evaluate and refine. Instead of relying solely on visual judgment, historians could now reference probability models, error margins, and statistical validation. Many observers began to wonder what this meant for the broader field of ancient studies. Could similar models reshape the dating of other manuscript traditions? Could artificial intelligence unlock patterns hidden in ink that human eyes had overlooked for generations? Researchers suggested that this development signaled a shift toward collaborative scholarship, where technology and human expertise worked side by side. In reported statements, the team made it clear that careful validation and rigorous peer review were still absolutely essential. They weren't rushing to rewrite history overnight. Every dataset would be tested, challenged, and examined from every possible angle. And yet, despite that caution, their confidence was unmistakable. They believed Enoch wasn't just another experimental model. It was a reliable, innovative tool capable of reshaping how we understand the timeline of ancient writing itself. If their findings held up under scrutiny, entire chapters of early literary history might need to be reconsidered. But that raises a much bigger question. If this tool is helping decode timelines connected to ancient texts, what exactly are those texts? And why does one particular name keep surfacing in these conversations? Before we go any further, you'll want to stay with me all the way to the end, because understanding this next piece changes everything. What is the Book of Enoch? Ancient writings rarely stir as much debate as the Book of Enoch, a collection that many people assume is a single lost scripture, but which scholars describe as 5 separate works written across different generations. Historians have explained that the oldest sections likely date back to roughly 300 to 200 BCE, while the final section, often called the Book of Parables, appears to have taken shape closer to 100 BCE. That timeline alone raises questions. How could one name be attached to writings produced centuries apart? Researchers have pointed out that the text is considered pseudepigraphal, meaning the material was written under the name of Enoch long after the biblical figure would have lived. Preservation adds another layer of mystery. Fragments have been discovered in Aramaic and Greek, yet the only complete version to survive from ancient times exists in Ge'ez, the classical liturgical language of Ethiopia. Many scholars have described that survival as remarkable. Why did a full version endure in Ethiopia while other regions preserved only pieces? That question continues to fuel discussion in academic and religious circles. Experts have explained that the 5 internal books each serve a different purpose. The Book of the Watchers, covering chapters 1 through 36, presents a dramatic account of angels who crossed the boundary between heaven and earth. The Book of Parables, chapters 37 through 71, shifts focus toward themes of judgment and a coming chosen figure who would bring justice. The Astronomical Book, chapters 72 through 82, moves into detailed descriptions of calendars, heavenly movements, and cosmic order. The Book of Dream Visions, chapters 83 through 90, retells history from creation onward through symbolic dreams and imagery. Finally, the Epistle of Enoch, chapters 91 through 108, draws a strong contrast between righteousness and wickedness and speaks about rewards and consequences. Scholars have often said that this structure shows diversity in tone and purpose rather than a single flowing narrative. Could that diversity have contributed to later debates about authenticity? The most dramatic portion appears in the Book of the Watchers, where a group described as 200 celestial beings descended to Mount Hermon. Ancient names such as Semjaza and Azazel are presented as leaders of this group. According to the text, these beings swore an oath together and chose human wives. The offspring of these unions were called the Nephilim, portrayed as enormous and powerful giants. The description goes further by stating that these giants consumed vast amounts of food, exhausted resources, and eventually turned violently against humans and animals. Scholars have described this passage as an attempt to expand on brief and mysterious references found in Genesis. What motivated ancient writers to elaborate so heavily on such a short biblical passage? Some researchers suggest that the text tried to explain the origin of evil and suffering through a cosmic rebellion narrative. The account continues by explaining that when the giants died, physical bodies perished, but spirits remained on Earth as harmful forces that would trouble humanity until a final judgment. This explanation of disembodied spirits has often been cited as one reason the text drew both fascination and suspicion. Religious history reveals that acceptance of this book shifted over time. Jewish rabbinic authorities did not include the Book of Enoch within the Hebrew canon. Early Christian thinkers, such as Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria, and Origen, reportedly treated the text with respect and at times referred to it as useful or meaningful. However, by the 4th century, broader church leadership moved toward excluding it from the developing New Testament canon. The Council of Laodicea, around 363 to 364 CE, did not include the Book of Enoch among accepted canonical writings. Theological concerns played a role in that decision. Scholars have explained that elaborate descriptions of angels, layered heavens, and strong dualistic themes raised caution among leaders who sought a more unified and widely accepted scriptural collection. Was the rejection based more on theology, authorship concerns, or church unity? Historians continue to debate that balance. One notable exception remains the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which includes the Book of Enoch within its biblical canon to this day. That unique position highlights how canon formation differed across regions and traditions. The continued inclusion within Ethiopian Christianity has preserved a living connection to a text that many other traditions left behind. Scholars have remarked that such differences reveal how early Christianity and Judaism developed through varied cultural and theological paths, rather than a single uniform process. Discussion surrounding the Book of Enoch often circles back to one central question: why does this ancient work continue to capture attention centuries after exclusion from most biblical canons? Some point to dramatic imagery of fallen angels and giants. Others point to apocalyptic visions and moral warnings. Still others see value in understanding how Second Temple Jewish thought evolved before the rise of Christianity. Whatever the reason, academic and religious conversations show no sign of fading. The Book of Enoch stands as a reminder that ancient texts can shape belief, spark debate, and challenge assumptions long after their initial composition. For centuries, it has existed in the shadows of more widely accepted scriptures, quoted by some, rejected by others, preserved carefully by a few communities, while remaining largely mysterious to the rest of the world. Yet, despite its age, the questions it raises feel surprisingly modern. Where did its stories truly come from? Who wrote them? And why were they left out of certain religious canons? What makes the Book of Enoch so powerful isn't just its dramatic imagery of fallen angels, heavenly journeys, and apocalyptic visions. It's the way it forces readers to reconsider what they think they know about ancient belief systems. This is a text that refuses to sit quietly in history. Instead, it lingers, provoking scholars, theologians, historians, and now even technologists to take a closer look. And that's where things take an unexpected turn. Because in recent years, something new entered the conversation: artificial intelligence. Researchers began feeding the text into advanced AI systems trained to detect linguistic patterns, stylistic shifts, and hidden structures within ancient manuscripts. Unlike human researchers, AI doesn't tire, doesn't carry theological bias, and doesn't approach a text with centuries of inherited interpretation. It looks at patterns, word frequency, syntax consistency, structural anomalies, searching for clues that might otherwise go unnoticed. And what it revealed surprised many. AI analysis suggested that the Book of Enoch may not be the work of a single author at all, but rather a layered compilation written across different periods. Subtle variations in vocabulary and tone hinted at multiple contributors, possibly separated by decades. Certain sections appeared to reflect distinct cultural influences, suggesting the text evolved over time instead of appearing fully formed. In other words, what many assume to be one unified voice may actually be a chorus. And here's why this matters. The intersection of faith, history, and technology is only just beginning. If AI can uncover hidden layers in a text as old and complex as the Book of Enoch, what else might it reveal about other ancient writings we thought we fully understood? So, as we step back and consider everything uncovered, one thing becomes clear. This story isn't just about an ancient manuscript. It's about how modern tools are reopening old mysteries in ways no one expected. And trust me, what this could mean for the future of biblical scholarship might be even more surprising. Make sure you watch till the very end, because the final insight could completely change how you see ancient texts forever. What AI revealed. Fresh results coming from Popovich's research team revealed something few experts expected, and that unexpected turn has started a serious conversation across biblical scholarship. Radiocarbon testing showed that most of the Dead Sea Scrolls examined turned out to be older than traditional paleography had suggested. For decades, handwriting analysis had guided dating estimates, with scholars carefully comparing letter shapes and script styles to known historical samples. That method built a timeline many accepted as reliable. Yet scientific testing now suggested that many manuscripts might need to be pushed back by 50 to 100 years. Such a shift naturally raises an important question. If the physical material proves older than the handwriting style suggests, how much confidence should remain in long-standing script-based timelines? According to the research findings, 28 out of 30 tested manuscripts were older than scholars had previously believed. Only 2 appeared younger than expected. This pattern surprised many because paleography had often been treated as the anchor for dating ancient Jewish texts. Even more striking, the Hasmonean and Herodian script styles seemed to overlap much earlier than earlier models allowed. Instead of Herodian script emerging during the reign of King Herod from 37 to 4 BCE, evidence now pointed to Herodian type writing, appearing in the late 2nd century BCE. That revision changes more than handwriting charts. That revision changes assumptions about when certain communities copied and circulated sacred texts. 2 particular fragments stand out in these findings and have drawn special attention. Fragment 4Q114, which contains verses from the Book of Daniel, received a revised date range of 230 to 160 BCE. Earlier handwriting analysis had placed this manuscript around 165 BCE, roughly a generation after scholars believed Daniel was composed. Now, the physical dating places this fragment much closer to the actual period of composition during the Maccabean revolt. That proximity carries weight. Does a manuscript copied so close to the time of writing suggest quicker circulation than once assumed? Fragment 4Q109, containing text from Ecclesiastes, presents another dramatic shift. Previous estimates dated this scroll between 175 and 125 BCE. Radiocarbon analysis now moves the range back to 300 to 240 BCE, nearly a full century earlier. Ecclesiastes has traditionally been linked to King Solomon of the 10th century BCE in religious tradition, while many academic scholars place composition in the 3rd century BCE. A manuscript now physically dated to that same 3rd century BCE window places a surviving copy within the very era scholars associate with authorship. That alignment raises further questions. Could textual transmission have occurred almost immediately after composition? Could earlier copying practices have been more organized than previously thought? These updated dates carry serious implications for understanding biblical authorship and transmission. For the first time, physical manuscripts exist that align closely with the scholarly estimates for when certain books were first written. Instead of relying only on later copies, researchers now hold fragments that may sit within the same historical generation as the authors themselves. That reality shifts discussions about development, editing, and distribution. If Daniel circulated during the very years of the Maccabean crisis, how might that have shaped its message? If Ecclesiastes was copied during the intellectual atmosphere of the Hellenistic period, what does that say about how quickly philosophical reflections spread within Jewish communities? Each new date forces scholars to revisit long-standing timelines and ask whether earlier models underestimated the speed of textual preservation. The implications extend beyond Daniel and Ecclesiastes. Revised dating also affects fragments from the Book of Enoch, especially sections known as the Book of the Watchers, which contains detailed accounts of the Nephilim. Earlier dating places these Enochic fragments closer to the period they describe and closer to the Second Temple era in which such traditions developed. That proximity changes how scholars view the circulation of ideas about fallen angels and giant offspring. If these narratives were already present earlier than once documented, how widespread were such beliefs? Did communities treat these writings as authoritative sooner than assumed? These questions do not offer simple answers, but the earlier physical evidence strengthens the case that such traditions were active earlier within Jewish thought. Taken together, Popovich's team has introduced evidence that reshapes parts of the biblical timeline. Radiocarbon testing has not replaced paleography, but it has clearly challenged some conclusions drawn from handwriting alone. When scientific measurement pushes manuscripts back by decades or even a century, established charts and categories require careful revision. Scholars now face the task of integrating material science with traditional script analysis. What emerges from this process may be a more refined and balanced chronology. For now, one fact stands clear. The Dead Sea Scrolls continue to surprise the academic world, and each new test invites deeper reflection about how ancient texts were written, copied, and preserved across generations. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.